to how to prepare to secure interviews, um, one of the most common questions that everybody I think has told us is that um, the question is like, tell me about yourself. So they can ask it in different ways, like, tell me more about yourself just so that I can get to know you better. Tell me something about yourself that is not on your CV, or just sometimes they may not even ask you, like they just ask you, how are you? And then you just start from there. So these questions are extremely important, and these are obviously very different based on who you are, what your experiences and all of that. But in general, I would I recommend that you organize your answers into 4 small paragraphs. All right. And this answer has to be prepared regularly. You need to keep working on this and keep practicing this answer as many times as you can. So the first paragraph, so you introduce, when they ask you about, tell me about yourself, you introduce by, saying who you are. You're, so-and-so from here, either from the US or from a different country, wherever you did your medical school, the type of medical school you went to, and what you're up to right now. Maybe you are doing a clinical rotation at a specific place. Maybe you're doing research at a specific place. Maybe you are working as a medical assistant at a specific place. Whatever you are, you need to give them a brief overview of all the things that you are, of the person you are in that first paragraph, very briefly. And then you want to start explaining smaller things. And if you notice that my paragraphs say briefly, briefly, briefly. The reason I say briefly is that these are launchpads, the rocket launchpads. These are launchpads for you to for them to ask you certain questions that you can expand upon. So for example, in paragraph 2, when you say, when you talk about what brought you into that specialty, you again, like you would say, oh, only a brief portion of it. And that gives them the opportunity to maybe dig up more into it. They say, oh, I noticed that you said this about how you went into internal medicine. Can you tell me more about that experience? And that is how you direct them, or you have that launchpad for yourself, the launchpad that you yourself created to answer that question in a much better way. Similarly, all the other things, like what about that program made you interested? You would just tell them briefly, but then they have an opportunity to ask you this more in detail. Okay, so continuing in your paragraph 2, you want to continue with what is your final goal? Do you want to do academic internal medicine? Do you want to do academic hospitalist? Do you want to go into private practice where you can own an office? And you want to also build in how you think the program that you're interviewing at, how that program can help you achieve those goals. Okay, again, all these things don't have to be really detailed. These have to be brief enough that it piques their interest and they're able to ask you more about it, right? And then third paragraph will talk about more about you. What makes you competitive? What are your strengths? Again, briefly, what makes you competitive as a candidate? What do you offer to the program? And how you are as a person. As many of you know, the hobbies section in your CV is no longer there. So many people had to add it in their experience section and things like that. So this is another great opportunity for you to tell them how you are as a person outside of medicine, right? Maybe you're somebody who loves to read detective novels. Maybe you're somebody who loves to do certain arts and crafts. Maybe you have a YouTube channel, whatever, right? You need to tell them about things, the things that make you a person outside of medicine. Again, these are things that they can, again, ask you more in detail, and you can connect with them, depending on who the person is. And again, after this, you want to close the paragraph, you want to close the answer. And this is a general rule for all questions. You want to close your answer by telling them, essentially, by distilling everything that you said and telling them the goal of why you were there. Okay, you want to close and tell them that either you want to say that, yes, the reason I'm here, and I'm really happy to be here, in this interview, because, I want to be part of your residency program or a program such as yours and things like that. So essentially, all these paragraphs, you want to structure it into these different paragraphs or different sections and finish it off in less than a minute and a half, right? About a minute and a half is a good rule. Less than 2 minutes for sure. Beyond that is just too much. Okay. So like I said before, answer structures. And this is not just for tell me about yourself. For all the questions, have a brief introduction with what you're going to talk about. So for example, if they ask you your strengths, you give them a brief overview of your strengths and then talk about it in detail with an example. Okay. And then, like I said, you will close the answer again, giving them a launch pad to the next question. So you want to close your answer again and remind them of all the strengths that you had or all the things that you talked about in that answer, directing them to the next question. And these are some of the things that are important as well. So like I said before, all these things are looked for in ranking, like your interpersonal skills, interactions with faculty, and all of that. So when they're looking for somebody who can keep a conversation, like say you don't have any awkward conversations or awkward pauses in between conversations, they want to see if the applicant can keep a stimulating conversation going. And what does that look for? What does that signify? That the person has good interpersonal skills or good interactions with faculty. And that is, again, this is how they test these things, right? Then there are behavioral questions that some programs will ask. There are a lot of internal medicine, some advanced programs, a lot of these programs now going to structured standardized behavioral questions that are meant to test your professionalism, your ethics, how much you know the specialty and things like that. Then there are questions like, what questions do you have for me? And these are questions that you absolutely have to prepare for. Okay, so this again denotes to how much interest you have in the program, how much you've read from the program, how much you've interacted with faculty and house staff. Same thing, do you know the program inside out? You need to read the program website, go through their website, go through all social media, go through any Google News that has come regarding them. So you need to know that program inside out, know the people's names, know what they did, know their interest. Again, all of this shows your perceived interest in that program. And very important, like I said before, you need to have a compelling answer for why the specialty, because that denotes your commitment to specialty. Okay. Now, there are a lot of general resources available online. These are just two examples. There are hundreds of questions, like I said before. There are hundreds of questions available online, and it's all up to you. Like, you have to just sit and prepare all of these questions. But there are also like most common questions and things like that. And obviously you start with the most common questions, and then you proceed to slightly more advanced and more behavioral kind of questions.